everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Rochelle from Rochelle.Handmade.Designs, and in this video we're going to go ahead and get to the sew along for project number 7, which is the peplum top using a basic top pattern. So now we have gotten all the drafting out of the way for the peplum top. Let's go ahead and get right on over to the sew along. But don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe button, and also turn on the notification bell so you are notified every time I upload a new video. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get right on into this sew along. All right, so let's go ahead and get started with the peplum. Now the peplum and the dress, it's pretty much the exact same tutorial. The only difference is that the dress is longer, but the steps are the same. So you will see the sew along for the peplum, and then you could follow along for the dress. The only thing I'm gonna do different for the dress is not add ties in the back for one, and then the peplum will not have the peplum will have the ties. I'm sorry about that. But just to go over the pieces that you will need is, of course, you will need your, whatever pattern that you do, you need to have your front and your back. So I'm doing Michele 7542, which is also Michele's 8161. So I will have my front, my back, my sleeves, my facing pieces, okay? And then I have ties to go on the back of my, this is like the tie to go on the back of my peplum, and then my peplum pieces, okay? That's all the items that you will need. So let's go ahead and start constructing, starting with the darts. All right, so now that I have my darts done, now I did not show you how to do darts because we have done darts so many times. So I'm just gonna flip it over to show you. So I made my darts right here, and then I pressed my darts down towards the bodice, right? And then in the back, if you are using the same pattern that I'm using, then you have a back dart at your shoulders, and all you're going to do is press that back dart towards the center back. So where you will have your zipper, you need to press your darts that way, okay? So you're gonna do that on both of your back pattern pieces. And the next thing you want to do is with right sides together, you're going to pin at your shoulders. So just make sure that you pin front to back at shoulders, just like that. I'm going to grab my pins and I'm going to pin my front to back at the shoulder. So go ahead and do that now. Now that I have my front to back pins at the shoulders using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, back stitch at the beginning and at the end and sew across both shoulders. Go ahead and do that now, and finish off your seam as well. So go ahead and do that now. Now that I have my shoulder seams sewn together and I press the seams towards the back of my garment, which is this side right here, which is the back right here. Now what I'm going to do is go ahead and insert my sleeve. Now I have done one sleeve on this side. You guys have seen me do sleeves before, so I'm just going to kind of talk you through it instead of showing you exactly how to do a sleeve. Just make sure you turn your top this way to where you have a U. Now grab your sleeves, and what you're going to do is create your 2 rows of gathering stitches or ease stitching along the sleeve cap. I made the first one at 1/2 inch and the second one at 3/8 of an inch. This is preventing me from having to take out basting stitches once I sew the sleeve in, okay? Then at the bottom, the hem allowance is 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Whatever it is for yours, you do whatever the seam allowance is for your sleeve. All you do is create a basting stitch at 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, press to that line, and then press up the hem. And then on the right side, you're going to stitch. Now I'm going to be stitching at 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Once I do that, I'm just going to gather my sleeve cap and then attach it to my sleeve. And once I attach it to my sleeve, what I'm gonna do is go ahead and close out the side seam. So go ahead and make your 2 rows of gathering stitch and finish off your hem, and then attach it to your sleeve. Your arm's eye for your sleeves. So go ahead and do that now. All right, so now that I went ahead and did the sleeves, they are completely sewn in. They're hemmed at the bottom of both of them. So now your top portion of your peplum top is starting to take shape, okay? So it should look like this, where you have the front, it's completely done with your darts made, and then the back is still open. You still want your back open, okay? So after you have that, just go ahead and put your peplum aside. Grab your peplum pieces, which you should have cut one on the fold, which is your front, and then you have two back pattern pieces, two pieces for the back, all right? Like this. Now, on one side, you should have notches, just like that, okay? Now, if you do not remember which portion is the top and which portion is the back, you will need to go and get your pattern piece that you created for your peplum to make that determination, okay? So what you're going to do is open out your front peplum, all right? And with right sides together, you're going to attach your back peplum at the notches, where you have the notches, at the notches, okay? So what you're going to do is grab one front, and this is my back pattern piece. I'm gonna move one out of the way. And just make sure that you are going to pin at the sides, but the one where you have the notches, that's going to go to the back. So with right sides together, you're gonna pin the front to the back at the side seam, but where you have that notch in the back, that needs to be in the back for your center back, okay? So front to back at the side seam, but you're going to pin the side that does not have the notches to the side of the front, if that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. So just go ahead and pin all the way across, and you're gonna do it on both sides. So go ahead and pin across now. All right, so now that I have the side seams pinned together using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, back stitch at the beginning and at the end, and then finish off your seam allowance. You're going to do that for both sides. Once you do that, now you have the option of serging it all together, which is what I'm going to do, and then press it towards the back, or you could do it open. Now, for me, what I'm going to do is just serge it together in one seam, and then at the center back seam, what I'm going to do is serge it individually. I do not want these serged together, so I'm going to serge the back seam, and I'm also going to go ahead and serge the back seam of my top. So you have a dot there, you just want to go ahead and serge the back of your bodice portion, the center back of your peplum as well on both sides. Where you attach front to back at the side seam, you just want to go ahead and using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, back stitch at the beginning and at the end, and finish off your seam allowance. I'm going to sew this together in one seam. So go ahead and sew your side seams now and finish off the bodice as well as the center back seam now. All right, so now that I have my ruffles sewn right sides together, so front to back at the side seam, so front to back at the side seams, I went ahead and finished off my side seams and pressed them towards the back, okay? Now the next thing you need to do is go ahead and make gathering stitches along the top of your ruffle. Now what I did was I created gathering stitches for the back, and then I stopped at the side seam and then did the front, stopping at the side seam all the way across. Now the next thing I'm gonna do is go ahead and pull up gathering stitches on the top portion of my ruffle. But what you also want to do is go ahead and hem the bottom. Now there's many ways you could hem the bottom. You could go ahead and finish it off with your serger. You could go ahead and turn up 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, whatever you want to do for your peplum ruffle or peplum portion or whatever. What I'm going to do is go ahead and serge it, and then I'm going to take up 5/8 of an inch hem allowance for mine. That's my plan and what I'm gonna do, but I'll do that here shortly. So go ahead and pull up your gathering stitches to fit on your bodice. So what you're going to do is grab your bodice. Now your bodice should be opened out like this, and what you're going to do is make sure that your gathers for the side fits onto your gathers for your peplum. So go ahead and pull up your gathering stitches now, and then just pin it onto your ruffles, and then we'll continue. Go ahead and do that now. All right, so now that I went ahead and attached my peplum to the bottom portion of my bodice section, so I'm gonna try to turn this so you could see what it looks like. This is the bodice, this is the peplum area. So now what we're going to do is go ahead and attach our zipper, okay? So what you wanna do is with right sides together, you are going to pin, well, before we attach our zipper, let's go ahead and do our facing piece, okay? So go ahead and make sure that you have interface your facing piece. So if you have not, go ahead and interface your facing piece now. All right, so if you have your facing piece already interfaced, what we're gonna do is with right sides together. So you have two dots. These two dots in the back meets up with these two dots. So with right side together, you want to go ahead and pin your facing pieces. So just make sure that you have them lined up. So you should have a notch. That notch goes to this notch right here, and then you're going to pin. So pin at that notch, and then pin at the dot. And then you're gonna do the same thing to the other side. Pin at the notch, and then pin at the dot. And using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, backstitch at the beginning and at the end, and sew across both shoulder seams. Press them open. After you press them open, you want to make sure that you finish off the outer edge of your facing. So go ahead and do that now. All right, so now that I have the facing attached front to back at the shoulder seams, and I finished off my facing piece, go ahead and move this off to the side for a quick second and grab your peplum, and what you're going to do is go ahead and install your zipper. Now you have a dot there. And that dot is basically, if you're not going to use a zipper, just go ahead and sew 5/8 of an inch seam allowance from the bottom to that dot, and then you could go ahead and just create your button like it normally tells you in the instructions, okay, if you're using this pattern. Now what I'm going to do is, because I am doing the zipper portion of it, and I created a zipper that goes all the way down here for my peplum piece, just make sure you have a zipper long enough, okay? So I'm just going to pin at my peplum seam allowance at the bottom, the waistline basically. I'm gonna pin there. I'm gonna pin at the bottom, and then I'm gonna pin all the way up, all right? And I'm going to put 2 pins where I want my zipper to stop, which will be at that double notch, okay, that I created. So go ahead and pin your center back seams now. All right, so now that I have my center back seam allowance pinned where I'm gonna have my zipper, I'm gonna start right here. Well, I'm gonna start at the hem. Using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance and a regular length stitch, I'm gonna back stitch at the beginning, sew to this notch right here that I created when I did the peplum portion. Sew to that notch, back stitch at this notch, switch to a basting stitch, and sew from here all the way up, basting this close. Once I do that, I'm gonna press it open and then go ahead and do my zipper. You guys have seen me do zippers so many times, so I'm not going to do the zipper for you in this tutorial whatsoever. But after you do your zipper, the next thing we're gonna do is go ahead and do our facing. So go ahead and prepare your zipper now. All right, so now that I have my zipper in the back portion of my peplum top, the next thing you're going to do is I'm going to add my label after I sew this on. But what you're going to do is, looking at your zipper, you're going to make sure that your zipper is not folded in this way. You want to make sure that your zipper is out. And what you're going to do is just go ahead and pin your facing onto the back of your peplum. So just matching up the back, you're going to pin the back at the back facing to the back. Also make sure that you pin at your shoulder seams, match up those seams. You also have notches in the front, so just make sure when you get to those notches matches up in the front as well. And pin there. Pin at both notches and pin all the way around. So go ahead and pin your facing onto your bodice now. So now that I have my facing pinned onto my bodice, using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance and a regular length stitch, back stitch at the beginning, sew around the upper portion of your facing. And then after you do that, you're going to press your seams up towards your facing and then understitch. Go ahead and do that now. All right, now after I went ahead and attached my facing onto the neck edge of my bodice, next thing I'm going to do is go ahead and trim down my facing, and then press it up towards my press my seam allowance up towards the facing and understitch. After I understitch, I'm going to go ahead and finish off the center back zipper area and then turn it to the inside. And once you trim it down, you could go ahead and, if you have a longer zipper like I use, you could go ahead and trim that off as well. So go ahead and trim it down, understitch, and finish off your zipper area now. All right, so now that I finished off my facing, I went ahead and understitched. I trimmed it down and I turned my facing to the inside and finished off my zipper area. There's only two things left for you to do. The first thing you're going to do after you give your facing a press to the inside, you are going to kind of tack your facing down at the shoulder seams to keep it from flopping up and down. So go ahead and tack it down at the shoulder seam. You can do it with a hand needle, or you could do what I'm gonna do and just stitch in the ditch across both of the shoulder seams. All right, so after you do that, you can zip it up, make sure that your zipper is working fabulous. And then the only thing you have to do is go ahead and do your hem. Now you have two options. I'm gonna go ahead and cut my zipper because I'm done with my zipper area. You could do that, or you could leave it on. That's completely up to you, but I'm just gonna go ahead and clip mine off because I'm not gonna need it. So the only thing left for you to do is go ahead, and you have two options. The option that I'm going to do is go ahead and serge all the way around, press up 5/8 of an inch hem allowance, and then sew on the right side. Now what you can do is create a basting stitch all the way around at 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, press to that line, and then press up again and stitch on the right side. Whichever way you decide to do, it is completely up to you. But once you do that, you are all done with your peplum, so you can move this out the way and start working on your dress. Now the only thing about the dress is the construction is exactly the same. The only difference is if you chose to do a different sleeve, you could go ahead and do a bishop sleeve, you could do a slit sleeve, you could do whatever sleeve that you would like for your dress. The only difference is you will be adding pockets to your dress if you choose to, as well as the peplum portion will be a lot longer, but the construction is exactly the same. So go ahead and move your peplum off to the side, work on your dress. So that's it for this tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it. The next tutorial will be the lightweight jacket, so stay tuned for that. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, keep sewing. All right, so there you have it. That is the complete sew along. I hope you enjoyed, and if you make it, please tag me on Instagram at Rochelle.Handmade.Designs. So I'll catch you in the next video, and as always, keep sewing.